Happy Wednesday, writers. I am so excited because today we are officially starting Unit 2, which is writing realistic fiction. Our learning target today is I can get ideas for fiction by paying close attention to the small moments in my life. And I want you to ask yourselves, how can we create impressive fictional tales or stories from those small moments in our lives? So how can we use those as motivation to come up with a fictional, realistic story? The quote of the day is life is a succession, of lessons which must be lived to be understood, by a very famous writer named Ralph Waldo Emerson. And what I want you guys to do, so let's go ahead, if you haven't already, click on the module for today, Writing Realistic Fiction, Session 1. Go ahead and click where it says, let's prep for this session. And I have 4 things I want you to do to prepare. So you need to go ahead and open the lesson slides. I am wanting you to open these because I have something you're going to do with them, so you need them up. And then I need you, if you haven't already, if you didn't do this at the beginning of the year, we need to create a Dobbs ELA folder in your G Drive. We are going to be using this every single day for the rest of the year, and I need you to have this so that you're ready to go and that you can easily access the things we're creating in this room. So you'll know if you go to, let me just backtrack a little bit. So just for those who don't know how to get to the Google apps, you just go to Google and then you click right here and your drive is right there. If I'm speaking too fast in this video, just pause me, go back if you need to, okay? Now, I already have this folder and I know because if I'm scrolling down, it's right there. If you don't have it, just click New folder, and you're just going to type Dobbs ELA, and then you're going to create it. Okay. Once you create it, it will pop up. Now, I didn't make one because I already have one, so I'm going to go ahead and open it. And then you should have that digital reader's writer's notebook that we created at the beginning of the year. If you do not, judge-free zone, I'm going to have you create something else. But if you are enjoying working in this, it looks like this, then I want you to keep working in this notebook. Okay. And you're going to make sure that you scroll down to, we are now in Unit 2, okay? Now, if you don't have this, that is A-okay. I want everyone to go ahead and make a folder within our Dobbs ELA folder. We go ahead and click New Folder, and we're going to title it Writing Realistic Fiction, and then go ahead and create it. I already have one. It's right here. Okay. Now, if I don't have that digital writer's notebook, I want you to just go ahead and we're just going to create a doc and we're going to make that a notebook. So you'll just go to Google Doc. Once it opens, then you're just going to title it Digital Writer's Notebook. Now, I already have made one, so I'm not going to make a new one. Okay. And then the last thing I want you to do, will you click where it says number 3 within that folder to save the focus notes template? Will you open up those focus notes template? Once you open it, I want you to go to File, make a copy, and you're going to save that copy in your folder. If it doesn't already pop up to your folder, you'll just click here, and you'll make sure you're in your drive, right? And then you should find it within here. So you'll scroll down until you see Dobbs ELA, and then you'll save it right here. Okay, I'm not going to save it because I already have. And once you've saved it, it'll pop up, that's yours. And what I want you to do is make a copy of that, because I gave you this template because we'll be taking focus notes a lot. So I want you to have the template in your folder. And then anytime you want to set up new focus notes, you'll just file, make a copy. And so I'm going to go ahead and save this. This is for Unit 2, Session 1 focus notes. I'm going to save it within my folder, but I want to put it in this unit's folder, the Writing Realistic Fiction, okay? And then I'll just select that to save there. I already have them in there though, so I'm not going to do that, okay? All right, so now you should have open. You should have open the slides, right? You should have open the focus notes that you're setting up for today. Let me open mine. Okay, they're right here. I'm going to close the template because I don't need that, right? And then however you're doing your digital writer's notebook, if you're just doing it in the doc or if you have the actual digital writer's notebook, have that open, okay? Okay, once you have all of those open, then you can go ahead and click Next, and you're ready to start, okay? So the first thing I want to go ahead and do is let's set up our focus notes. So the topic today is Writing Realistic Fiction. Your name, class ELA, date 10/21/20, Essential question: how can we create impressive fictional tales or stories from small moments in our lives? I should make this a question. And then I'm going to go through the slides, and I'm actually going to tell you when I want you to add to your notes. All you have to do, because you have access to this, is copy and paste for me. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and begin. So if we're looking back, right, to our central question is, how can we create impressive fictional tales, stories from small moments in our lives? Well, let's take a page literally out of two famous fiction writers' books. So S.E. Hinton, you may have heard of her before. Some of my students are actually reading this book right now. It is amazing, and I highly recommend it. The movie is also, it's still really good, even though it's older. It holds up really well. It's called The Outsiders. S.E. Hinton published this in 1967 at just 17 years old. She began writing this at 15. That's 2 years older than most of you. It all came from, she was actually writing in her notebook about real life events that were happening in her high school at Tulsa, Oklahoma. This book is widely considered the very first realistic young adult novel ever published. Guys, that's huge. Other Hinton books include Rumblefish, Tex, and That Was Then, This Is Now. All of them are amazing, and I recommend them all. If you want the digital version of The Outsiders, I have it, so just let me know. Another very famous and enjoyable author is John Green. He actually, so just like Hinton and a lot of famous writers, he does have a notebook that he carries around, and he kind of just scribbles small moments in his life, and then he goes back through them, and that's how he's found a lot of the inspiration for famous stories, including The Fault in Our Stars. So he had a really close friend who was sick. She had cancer, and he was actually spending some time with her. He went with her to the hospital for her cancer treatment, kind of jotted about that in his notebook. And a couple years later, he was just kind of flipping through, trying to find some inspiration for a new novel. And he came across that entry, and that's how he came up with the story idea for The Fault in Our Stars. So why am I telling you this? Because we want to try to use small moments from our own lives. We're going to actually take some time today to jot down small moments from our lives. And then we want to do what these two famous authors did, and we want to get inspiration for some story ideas. So the first thing I want you to add to your focus notes, number 1, in that left-hand margin, right? So remember, you can just copy and paste this in. How do fiction writers get ideas for their stories? So fiction writers pay close attention to their lives. Fiction writers like S.E. Hinton and John Green find significant stories in the most ordinary, maybe even boring moments from their notebooks. You can do this too by writing a small moment story from your life. We're actually going to do that today in just a few minutes. So what are some strategies you could use to generate ideas for your story? I want you to think of a person who matters to you, and then list some small moment stories with that person in them. And then after you've done that, you could choose one and you could write the whole story. You could make it into a realistic fiction story. Or you could think of the first time or the last time you did something, kind of write that out in a small moment story. I'm going to show you how to do this in a second. You could choose one of those and you could focus on making that a realistic fiction story. You could also think about moments that really mattered because maybe you realized or you learned something. You could list those moments out, choose one, write the whole story. Or you could think about a place that matters. Maybe look at some pictures, whether it's online or pictures that you have on your phone, maybe a map, or just jot some quick notes about the small moments that occurred in this special place. Then choose one of those small moments and you could build a realistic fiction story from there. So that's all I want us to add to our notes for today, but don't forget the summary, right? Remember? So you should have been copying and pasting those questions and those notes in here. And now I want you to do the summary. So the summary should always answer our essential question. So how can we create impressive fictional tales, stories from small moments in our lives? Go ahead and you can pause me, and I want you to type your summary. And so now that we've kind of generated some ideas of how to do this, we're actually going to try it out. So I'm going to model it for you first, and then I'm going to give you some time to try it out on your own. And remember that anything we put in our notebook, it should not be mastery level work. It's not supposed to be perfect. This is all very rough, and we're going to change to it. We're going to add it. Some of it we're just going to, just trash it. We're never going to use it. That's the idea of a writer's notebook, okay? We're not looking for perfection here. This isn't what we're going to publish. Books have been edited, revised, burned, ripped pages, deleted so many times before they're actually published, okay? So what I want you to do in your writer's notebook, whichever one you're using, I want you to set up 2 new pages. The first one's going to be called Small Moment Stories from My Life. The second one's going to be called Realistic Fiction Story Ideas. And we want to put today's date, 10/21. And I will show you. So if I were in the, I'm going to go ahead and close out my focus notes. So if I was doing the doc digital writer's notebook, what I would do is just at the top of one page, I would just title it Small Moment Stories from My Life with the date, and then go down to a second page, Realistic Fiction Story Ideas. If you're using the notebook, then go ahead and create a new notebook page and title it Small Moment Stories from My Life with the date, and then another new page, Realistic Fiction Stories Ideas. Okay? So I'm going to model this. I will always model in writing first, and then I'm going to let you try it out on your own. So the first thing we want to do is we want to think about small moment stories from our own lives. So we're actually just going to spend some time jotting some small moments from our lives. So one that came to my mind is actually one of my most embarrassing childhood memories. And so I'm just going to write just a little bit, a small moment from it. Okay, so here goes. I hated PE, especially on days we had to run. Not only was I as slow as a turtle when I ran, but each running step felt and sounded like, in my mind at least, a baby elephant's legs crashing down on the asphalt. My strides were awkward, clumsy, and my chubby legs begged me to stop as they hit the ground, sending what seemed like vibrations from their weight. Fatty, fatty, 2x4. Fatty, fatty, can't fit through the door. I heard the familiar chant begin from the sidelines. It came from the skinny and athletic kids who had long been done with their mile test. It came from kids who were not my friends. Okay, so this is a small moment from my 5th grade year of school. It was the worst year of my life. I was bullied so much. I came home crying every single day. Now, I have so much I could write about that. This is just one small moment, right? And that's all we're trying to do right now, is just pick a small moment. Okay, so now I'm going to let you try it out. So in that page you set up, small moment stories, I just want you to think of a small moment from your own life. Now, if you're stuck, remember, this is why we took the focus notes. Go back through and look at the strategies you could use. So look at those bullets and maybe pick one of those, okay? And I'm not going to play the timer right now because I'm recording this. Guys, you can just pause me while you're doing this, okay? Okay. And then, so the idea is that once we have a small moment, then we want to head over to the Realistic Fiction Story Ideas page. And from the moment we wrote about, we want to see, can I come up with some story ideas based on that moment in my own life? So after I reread what I wrote, I was thinking about, well, what if I wrote a story about a girl? She's awesomely weird and refuses to change herself, even if most of her classmates think she's strange. So she decides maybe to run for student council president, but something happens and she is bullied to the point of humiliation and she just loses it. I was kind of thinking about what happened to me and what if I made a character kind of like her, but she's maybe a little bit older. I also thought maybe there's a story about this girl who, that scene I wrote, maybe that's her. And then she decides to spend that summer before she goes into 6th grade, into middle school, changing herself to fit in. So she loses weight, she fixes her hair, she buys all new clothes. And when she comes back to school the next year, no one recognizes her. And she's now popular. Will she become friends with those who tormented her? Or does she have a different plan? Okay, so those are just some story ideas I generated from the small moment I wrote about. I want you now to look at the small moment you wrote about, and I want you to just try out coming up with some realistic fiction story ideas. Okay, just jot as many down as you can. And once you've done that, we're going to head over to Canvas and we're going to open the narrative writing checklist discussion board, okay? So this is actually the narrative writing checklist that you were given in 6th grade. And I'm going to go here. So this is in the module for today, right? I'm in the narrative writing checklist discussion board. And so I actually put it in here. So the whole idea with this is that you should be able to look at, if you write, a realistic fiction story, and you want to look at each part. So overall, the lead, which is the beginning, the transitions, the ending, how it's organized, how did you develop with elaboration and craft, and then your spelling, punctuation, and sentence structure. I will be honest, these are always they're important, but I give these the least amount of attention. This is the biggest part. So what you do is you look at, am I not yet there? Am I starting to get there? Yes. Okay, so what I want you to do is just kind of look over this, and I want you to tell me, you're going to reply, and you're going to tell me 2 areas you feel like you currently do in your writing, or maybe it's 2 areas that you feel like you're really strong in. And when I say areas, I mean in the left, this gray column, 2 of those areas, okay? And then I also want you to tell me at least 1 area you're going to push yourself to grow in. And then once you've written those, you're going to post your reply, and then I want you to reply to at least one of your peers' posts. Let's really build a discussion here, okay? Remember our goal to be professional, respectful, and kind. And if you need to pause me, you just go ahead and pause me. Okay, and while I was looking at that, I decided I have another small moment that I want to add to my notebook page. And this is probably going to happen to you all day, guys. Like once you start kind of thinking, you open the floodgates on moments from your life. I challenge you that every time one pops up into that beautiful brain, I want you to add it to that notebook page called Small Moment Stories from Your Life. So I thought of another one. This one actually comes from when I was in 3rd grade, and it's when the class bully, for whatever reason, decided she wanted to be my friend. So here's a small moment. Jessica looked at me. I looked at her. Tar was dripping and drying to our hands. My face burned in anger. I knew my mom was going to kill us. She had warned me not to touch the melted tar at the end of our driveway. Jessica bent down and grabbed more of it with her hands. Ooh, okay. So if we look at that narrative writing checklist, I want you to, so I really tried to use some elaboration and craft to really develop this small moment. And I want you guys in the feedback discussion board in Canvas, I want you to tell me how I did. Okay. And I want you to be honest. So I want you to give me at least one celebration. What is something that you feel like, yes, Miss Dobbs did that? And what's one challenge that you're like, not, Miss Dobbs, you're not yet there. You're starting to get there. And I want you to be honest. Okay. We want to be honest with each other when we're giving feedback. We want to be kind, but we want to be honest. Okay. So in elaboration, do you think I developed realistic characters? Did I develop the details, the action, the dialogue? And did it give internal thinking that contributed to the deeper meaning of the story? Not yet. Starting to. Yes, you did. Craft. Do you think I developed some relationship between the characters to show why they were acting and speaking as they do? Did I tell the internal as well as the external story? Did I weave together precise descriptions, figurative language, maybe some symbolism to help you picture the setting and actions, bring forth a possible meaning? And did I use language that fits my story's meaning and context? For example, did I give different characters different kinds of language? Were they speaking? Did they speak in different ways? Okay, so what I want you to do, hit next in Canvas. And I embedded the checklist in here too. And I want you to tell me right here, you're going to respond, what is a celebration that you would give my writing, focusing on elaboration and craft, right? And what's a challenge you would give me? And I'm going to put this up here too so you can see them side by side, okay? And if you want to pause it, you can pause it. You can always go back too, okay? Well, this is my first one, so you could look at this one if you want, and you can also look at this one, okay? Either one is fine with me. And then the last thing I'm going to have you do is I want you to actually set some goals for yourself. So once you do that and you post your reply, you're going to go to next. And now you're going to focus on, how do you do with elaboration and craft when you're writing? So take a few minutes and I want you to assess your own writing. Look at the small moment you wrote down. You're going to tell me, are you not yet there? You're starting to get there, or yes. And we're just focusing on elaboration and craft, right? So you'll just scroll down to elaboration and craft, read those. And based on how you score yourself for each, you're going to just reply with a goal you'd like to set for yourself for your narrative writing. And I gave you an example right here. So I said, I am not yet there with using language that fits my story's meaning and context. For example, different characters use different kinds of language. So I would respond, right? This would be my goal. I want to challenge myself to add dialogue in my story and to push myself to create dialogue with different types of language for different characters. I want them to speak differently and in a way that matches their backgrounds and personalities. Okay, so take a few minutes to do that for yourself. And then here's your homework for tonight. So you've set up these 2 pages in your notebook, small moment stories from your life. As you keep thinking about more, I want you to add them to that page. See how many you can get down, okay? And then as you're adding them, I want you to also look at the page that we set up for realistic fiction story ideas. I want you to start coming up with ideas based on these small moments you're jotting down. What are some story ideas that you're coming up with? And then don't forget that you should also be reading 30 to 40 pages in your novel. We're still doing that each night, guys, okay? And we should still be in a fiction book because the goal is we should be getting inspired by the fiction we're reading for our own fiction writing we're about to begin. All right, everybody, happy writing, happy reading. Let me know if you need any help. I cannot wait to see what you're coming up with in these notebooks.